Okay, thank you for inviting me to this presentation to the ICPEP. So to add on my this work breakdown structure, so uh, I I I passed the board exam for civil engineering last 2004, and then working in the Philippines up to 2007. Then I went overseas in Indonesia to work at the Japanese company, J-Power Systems. And then in 2008, I came here to Singapore. So in Singapore, I work only for two companies, J-Power System or Sumitomo Electric Industries, and currently I'm working with Ilgen Electric. It's a Korean company. So for this Ilgen Electric company, my position is Deputy Project Manager. Malakas ang ulan sa labas. So for the first topic today, I will discuss about the project schedule management. So as per PMP guide, this is the number 3 knowledge area. And so for the takeaways, hopefully I can share, you can take away these 10 topics: the definition of the processes, the inputs, tools and techniques, outputs of each processes, and the key concepts: importance of scope baseline, importance of sequence of activity, logical relationship of scheduled activities, estimate on duration, lag time and lead time, or sometimes it's called float, and then total float evaluation and the control schedule. So this chart shows the relationship between the project life cycle, the process groups, and the 10 knowledge areas. So please take note that the process groups are not project life cycle, meaning the processes is not mandatory to be in sequence or in an order. So a process can be done concurrently with other processes or whichever is convenient to your company and logical to achieve your project requirement or objectives. So as defined in the PM book, process is a systematic series of activities directed towards causing an end result such that one or more inputs will be acted upon to create one or more outputs. And a project life cycle is the series of phases that the project passes through from its start to its completion. So you take note, this triangle here is a phase gate. So take note that the phase gate or a milestone has 0 duration. So please remember this. This is a 1 point in the exam. So under the project schedule management, it only has processes in the planning process group and the monitoring controlling process group. So this chart is showing the knowledge area with this project schedule management, and then below the planning process is the plan schedule management, define activities, estimate activity duration, develop schedule, and then for the monitoring and controlling is a control schedule. So for the project schedule management, there's no processes regarding the initiating, executing, and closing. So in the Pink Book guide, you can read this topic on pages I just written below. So 173 to 230, 571 to 576, 621 to 622, 645 to 646, 674, 680 and 717. So we'll go to the definitions. Project schedule management, the process required to manage the timely completion of the project. Plan schedule management, the process establishing the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, developing, managing, executing, and controlling the project schedule. And then the defined activities, the process of identifying and documenting the specific actions to be performed to produce the project deliverables. And sequence activities, the process of identifying and documenting relationships among the project activities. Estimate activity durations, the process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete the individual activities with the estimated resources. Develop schedule, the process of analyzing activity sequences, durations, resources, requirements, and schedule constraints to create the project schedule model for project execution and monitoring and controlling. And then lastly is the control schedule, the process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project schedule and manage changes to the schedule baselines. So these definitions you can see in the Pinbook guide. So we go to the inputs, tools, and techniques, and outputs. So sometimes we call it in short the ITTOs. So I will not be reading this to you. I have just to make a summary on the common tools and techniques used in the processes. So there are a total of 59 tools and techniques. So under the project school management, it uses 27 tools and techniques. So the tools and techniques that appears more than once is the expert judgment, data analysis, meetings, leads and logs, project management information system, critical method, schedule compression. If you want to read furthermore on regarding these tools and techniques table, you can go to the page, Pinbook guide page 686 to 694. So in the process inputs and outputs, these are the list of items under the project management plan and project documents plan. And aside from this list for the inputs, there are also the organizational process assets, or what we call OPAs, and also enterprise environmental factors, or EEFs. So the OPAs and EEFs is also an important subject to know that will affect the processes output. So you will notice in some of the outputs in the processes, it mentions project management plan updates or project documents updates. So it is referring to this list, this project management plan and the project documents. So under the project management plan, there are 19 items, and the project documents, there are 13 items. So please familiarize what was written on this table and understand the corresponding definition. So we go to the key concepts. The key concept of the project schedule management is to provide a detailed plan that represents how and when the project will deliver the products, services, and results defined in the project scope. The project schedule is used as a tool for communication, managing stakeholder expectations, and a basis for performance reporting. When possible, the detailed project schedule should remain flexible throughout the project to adjust for knowledge gain, increased understanding of the risk, and value-added activities. In order to make the project schedule, you must know the scheduling method. For example, the critical path method or agile approach. And then you must also know the project information, like the WBS, activities, resources, durations, dependencies, constraints, calendars, milestones, logs, and etc. So you have to input this project information to the scheduling model. So the scheduling model is like the Microsoft project or any scheduling software when you have to choose which model, like the bar chart or burn down chart. With all the combinations of these four items, the scheduling method, scheduling tool, scheduling model, and the project information, then it will generate the project schedule. So the importance of a scope baseline. Uh, Before I studied the Pinbook guide, I have no idea of the term scope baseline. I know what a scope means, but the real meaning of the scope baseline was never heard before. So actually, what I'm currently doing in my project while dealing with our subcontractor and client with some healthy arguments is that the scope baseline was not properly discussed and there was no common understanding what was the scope baseline is before the project start or before an activity start. So which leads to the activity delay and eventually cannot meet the required completion date. So that's why the scope baseline is a very important in a project. And then the work breakdown structure was also first time I learned when I joined PMI. So project has always has a scope of work. Normally it is written in the contract with relation to the project requirements. So as a project manager, you have to make sure that you have complied to the contract scope and requirements. You must know well the contract documents. Any missing scope requirement, it will jeopardize your project. So the scope baseline is very important because it will have a significant impact on the duration of the project schedule. So normally in a project, we have to avoid the scope creep. So scope creep is as defined as the uncontrolled expansion to the product or the project scope without adjustments to time, cost, and resources. So the meaning of the scope baseline is the approved version of the scope statement, WBS, and its associated WBS dictionary, which can be changed only through formal change control procedures and is used as a basis for comparison. So for the components of this scope baseline is the project scope statement, so double work breakdown structures, the work package, planning package, and the WBS dictionary. So the importance of sequence of activity. So once you already have the work breakdown structure, then you will be ready to do the sequencing of the activities. So basic sequencings of the activities, there will be a predecessor and a successor. Then the predecessor and successor is either mandatory or discretionary or internal or external. A predecessor activity is an activity that logically comes before a dependent activity in a schedule. Then a successor activity is a dependent activity that logically comes after another activity in a schedule. Mandatory dependencies is a relationship that is contractually required or inherent in the nature of the work. And then the discretionary dependency is a relationship that is established based on knowledge of best practices within a particular application area or an aspect of the project where a specific sequence is desired. So mandatory dependency means you have to follow no matter what. And then the discretionary dependency is depends on your expertise or your company procedures. And then the internal means within the team's control or within the organization, and the external means outside the team's control, normally involve third parties. So an activity can either be mandatory or discretionary. It cannot be both. And then an activity can either be internal or external. It cannot be both also. So for example, there's an activity A as a predecessor. So it can only be described as mandatory and internal, or discretionary or internal. So it cannot be mandatory and discretionary, or internal and external. So logical relationship of scheduled activities. There are four logical relationships, namely the finish to start, start to finish, start to start, and finish to finish. So the following diagram is self-explanatory and with some description. So finish to start, or we call it the FS, is a predecessor must finish before successor starts. It's a common relationship. And then start to finish, or SF, the predecessor must start before next task is finishes. This is very rare. Then also I cannot give an example for this relationship. And then the start to start, or the SS, is the predecessor must start before successor starts. And then the finish to finish is a predecessor must finish before next task finishes. So both of these logical relationship is an opportunity to fast track the schedule. So estimate on duration. So I list 10 factors that affect the duration estimate. So number one is available resources, and then the level of accuracy of the estimate. Duration estimates do not include any leads or lags. Uses information from the scope of work, required resources types or skill levels, estimated resource quantities, and resource calendars. Constraints imposed on the duration, effort involved, and type of resources like the fixed duration, fixed effort or work, or fixed number of resources. And then number 8, law of diminishing returns. And number 9, advances in technology. Number 10, motivation of staff. So the list will have an impact on the number of days required to complete an activity. There are more duration estimate factors, but these are the most common for any project that you will have. So there are 4 types of estimating under the PMP guide, namely the analogous, parametric, 3-point, and bottom-up. So the analogous is the fastest and cheapest to do an estimate, but the less accurate. And then the parametric is the logical way to do an estimate. And the 3-point is used when you are not sure about the data that you have. You will use a formula to get the average. So later I will discuss further on these 3 points formula. And then the bottom-up is the most accurate, but time-consuming and expensive type of getting an estimate. So the 4 types of estimating can also be used in the project cost management and other knowledge areas that need estimation. So based on my experience when I did my estimation, I combined the parametric method and the 3-point method. The bottom-up method I have not tried yet before, because to tell you honestly, I have yet to experience to make or prepare the work breakdown structure. It's good that you already know how to make the work breakdown structure, as instructed by us, as instructed by my colleague, Mr. Lex. So the project that I have before and now does not require to prepare a WBS. But I will be applying the WBS in my next project and make my own template because it's very helpful. So the 3-point estimating using a 3-point estimates helps define an approximate range for an activity's duration. So the most likely is estimate is based on the duration of the activity given the resources likely to be assigned, their productivity, realistic expectation of availability for the activity, dependencies on other participants, and interruptions. In short, just nice. And then for optimistic, the activity duration based on analysis of the best case scenario for the activity. So this duration is less days than the most likely. So this optimistic, I think the project manager is very confident he can finish the work early. And then for the pessimistic, the duration based on analysis of the worst case scenario for the activity. So the duration will be more days than the most likely and the optimistic. So there's two types of 3-point estimating formula, the triangular and the weighted. So the triangular is just a direct average. You add the 3 items plus divide by 3. And then the weighted is you have to multiply the most likely by 4, plus you add the optimistic and pessimistic and you divide by 6. So the only difference of the two equations is that the weighted equation has given more weight or importance to the most likely scenario. So it means that the result will be near to the real outcome of or duration of the work. So the best estimate is the nearest to the actual result. But as you know, estimate is an estimate. So now we will go to the lag time and lead time or float. So a lag or delay means the amount of time whereby a successor activity will be delayed with respect to a predecessor activity. So for this example, the predecessor is a concrete pouring or floor slab. And then the successor is a removing formworks or the support. So this for this uh, for this relationship, before it will go to the removing of the formworks, it needs 21 days because the concrete needs curing. So that's why there's a delay of 21 days. And this requirement is mandatory. So you cannot remove this requirement. So when you make the when you will preparing the schedule, you have to make sure what are the mandatory requirements. So this okay. So this predecessor and successor relationship is about mandatory requirement before the successor activity can start work. So mandatory means you cannot remove this process. In local dialect here in Singapore, it means die must follow. So we go to the lead or negative lag, the amount of time whereby a successor activity can be advanced with respect to a predecessor activity. So normally this type of activity relationship is very common to paperwork activities. So this type of work schedule can advance the start of the successor activity and can help reduce the total duration of the schedule. But this is only possible if you have enough resources to do this job, because there's an overlapping. So normally in a company with limited resources, this will not be possible. But sometimes it's possible, but you have to go overtime. You work overtime. So if you work overtime, it will make your workers burn up, and at the end, the final result will be a delay due to bug job or not complying to requirements and all. So as a project manager, you must have to check the balance and benefits of your plan before making a decision. Yeah, this is very easy in just talking, but reality is very stressful. So if you love the stress and sometimes sleepless night, then come, please join us. So we go to the total float evaluation and resource optimization. So usually when I prepare a schedule, I will make sure that I will put some buffer dates on the critical path. Sometimes client will have no idea on the real duration of a certain activity. So, but if there's any objection, you have to prepare your answer. Like you have to put additional dates due to weather condition and safety requirements. So normally I use the safety requirements because when you talk about safety, the client cannot comment on that. So for the total float, the amount of time the scheduled activity can be delayed or extended from its very start date without delaying the project finish date or violating a schedule constraint. And then the critical path method, or the CPM, is used to estimate the minimum project duration and determine the amount of schedule flexibility on the logical network path within the schedule model. So the CPM is the longest path of activities, and it usually have a zero float. And then the predecessor and the successor activity relationship is mandatory. So before you can make the schedule, you have to familiarize with this table. This is the activity node. This is where you can see the location of the early start, duration, the early finish, activity name, late start, total float, and the late finish. Normally in the project schedule software, you can see this table. So initially, the start and finish are not actual dates, but rather work periods, or total float is the buffer work days. So this is an example on how to calculate the total duration and determining the critical path or the longest duration. So there are 4 activities on this schedule: activity A, B, C, and D. So you have to calculate the total duration. So for path A, 5 plus 5 plus 15 equals 25. 5 plus 10 plus 15 equals 30. So the biggest path or the longest duration is path A, C, and D. So this is your critical path. So the network diagram formulas are written here. So duration is equal to the early finish minus early start plus 1, or early finish minus late start plus 1. And then the total float equals to late start minus early start, or late finish minus early finish. Then early finish is equal to early start plus duration minus 1. Then early start is equal to early finish of predecessor plus 1. Then late finish is equal to late start of successor minus 1. And then late start is equal to late finish minus duration plus 1. So please familiarize this equation. When I say familiarize, I mean it to familiarize. Because this will come out from the exam. So resource optimization is used to adjust the start and finish days of activities to adjust planned resources used to be equal or to or less than resource availability. So there's two techniques for resource optimization, the resource leveling and the resource smoothing. For the resource leveling technique, in which start and finish dates are adjusted based on resource constraints with the goal of balancing the demand of resources with the available supply. So this type of technique will change the critical path. So there will be a schedule delay. Later, I will show you some graph for easy understanding. And then for the resource smoothing technique that adjusts the activities of a schedule model such that the requirements for resources on the project do not exceed certain predefined resource limits. So this technique will not change the critical path because it uses the float. So normally here in Singapore, if you will use resource leveling, your company will get a penalty. That's what we call the liquidated damages, or LD. So I have yet to experience this because normally also we cannot meet the contractual schedule, we will apply an EOT. EOT means extension of time, but this subject for approval. So previously, extension of time can easily get approved, but nowadays it is quite difficult. But with a valid reason like the pandemic, no need for discussion. So this is the example of the resource leveling. So here it shows in day 1, activity A and activity B is concurrent. But MISU is doing activity A and activity B. So this one is impossible. So that's why in order to level your resources, you have to adjust your schedule. So that's why instead of only you put day 2 days, now become 3 days. So we go to control schedule. This is the last takeaway. So after you finish prepare all your schedule, then it's time to do the monitoring. So how are you going to monitor your project schedule or progress? You will need the progress data. So in order to have an accurate progress data, you have to understand how the data or reporting flow of your project. So this chart is just a sample flow of how the data is passed to the organization. So for the executing processes, the work performance data will be attained. You will get the work performance data in the executing processes. And then the controlling processes, you can get the work performance information. So this work performance data will become the work performance information. Then after the work performance information, it will go to the overall project control, then become the work performance reports. So these reports will either go to the, if there's some changes, for example, on the baselines, you have to go to the project change control. Then the approved change request will go to the various project processes. Then we'll go back again to the executing processes. If there's no problem with the performance reports, this will go to the project communications and will be distributed to the project team and the project stakeholders. So in order to have an accurate progress data, you have to understand how the data or reporting flow of your project. So you have to establish a system or data collection, gathering, processing, your final analysis on the data at hand. With the process data, then you will have to decide if corrective action, preventive action, or no action should be taken. So in my project, I practice not to rely on data alone. I normally visit the site regularly to confirm the actual progress or ask someone to take photo or check the live video. Now in our project, it is required to install live cameras with passwords. So it means I can log in anytime during the working period and check how is the site condition. So this is what we call now as a virtual monitoring. So sometimes it makes your life easier, but it makes you take overtime also, especially working from home. So for monitoring, you have to know this formula, the schedule variance, or SV. It provides schedule performance of the project and helps determine if the project work is proceeding as planned. So schedule variance is equal to the earned value minus the planned value. So earned value is a measure of completed work expressed in terms of authorized schedule for that work. And then the planned value is the authorized budget assigned to the scheduled work. So if the results of this equation is negative, it means behind schedule. If 0 is on schedule, and positive is ahead of schedule. And also you have to know this schedule performance index. So this measures of schedule efficiency on a project, ratio of earned value to planned value, and used to determine if a project is behind, on or ahead of the schedule. Can be used to help predict when a project will be completed. So schedule performance index is equal to earned value divided by planned value. So if the result is less than 1, it will be behind schedule. If equal to 1 is on schedule. And if it's more than 1, is ahead of schedule. So Mr. Lex, can I proceed to the sample questions?
Hi, sir. Sample question is for the quiz later. For the you can discuss one for you have one,
okay.
right, in your slide. Yeah.
Yeah, I have two questions in my slides, so I can. Okay, I'll show.
Okay, sir.
So sample questions. Sorry. Am I too fast or? Or you want me to go slow or anything? Everybody understand what I'm talking about?
You're overwhelming lang, sir.
Okay, sir. We can discuss the sample questions.
Okay. So sample question number 1. So what is the duration of any milestone in a project schedule in a calendar units? A, 0 units, B, 1 unit, C, the duration of the predecessor activity, or D, the duration of the successor activity.
So Sir Kelvin answered D.
Yun yung violent reaction. Yun na yun, sir, no? Wala bang clue?
Eh,
Yun yung exam.
Sir, nakita na daw yung exam.
sorry. sorry.
Lagot, Sir William.
Na-booking.
Booking ka na, sir.
Sana masagot.
Sige sir, ano yung answer natin dito?
The answer is letter A, 0 units.
Duration of any milestone in a project schedule in a calendar.
The milestone is the, as you see,
Yes,
I
correct.
already highlighted here in this, see the gate phase or milestone. This one is 0. There's no duration on this. Okay. So number 2 question. Actually, this exam is quite similar to the actual PMP exam. So later I will show you more. So during the execution of the project manager feels that a major adjustment to the project schedule needs to be made. These adjustments would affect the project baselines. What should be done as the first step? A, issuing a change request. B, asking the sponsor for an intervention. C, adjusting the project schedule. Or D, updating the project documents.
Ay, nawala.
Hey, sir.
Sir B.
So the answer is A.
A.
Yeah.
Showing a
Once you there's a word baseline. If there's a word baseline, it needs a change request before you can change it. Yeah. Every baseline must need a change request. So it will go to the project. I forgot the term. Wait. This one. It will go to the project control, project change control. It will. Yeah. Sorry. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Baka nakatulog na kayo.
Sir, nandito pa rin. medyo malalim lang kasi sir yung yung depth nung PMP regarding sa dito sa part na to. Because we're going to apply in the IT side. Side namin kasi we have the same process. We have we have ITIL, we have change request, meron kaming change request din. If any implementation siya sa change of sa server side or any application change, usually we have this part of change request also. Before any changes had been done, we have to do a change request submitted to our stakeholders. Once approved by the stakeholders, then we implement the change. But changing those, meron kaming changes. We do it for IT side. Sa akin, we do it nighttime. We don't do it during operation hours or else magagalit ang mga end user namin. Okay, guys. Sir Lex, I give it back to you the floor. If any question, mga kaibigan, mga kapatid, for this topic. Well, it's an thank you sa Sir William. Medyo
Thank you din.
Malalim siya.
Sorry, first time ko to eh.
Okay, again,
kabahan ako.
Thank you, Sir William. Actually, Sir William was able to connect. We have been highlighting since from the start of this series that we are gradually building up the knowledge. So we have the integration already, then we have the scope. Remember, even our activities, although it's very tiresome to create those documents, if you notice, that is what is being highlighted here in the schedule, project management. Yeah. Because if you already have those documents, like you have the WBS, the WBS dictionary, and the scope statement, that is basically the baseline, which is the core of this, one of the major inputs in this process. So that's why we really highlighted that one. If you were able to try, and then you're halfway on preparing for the actual project. So again, another thing, it was highlighted here. There are so many scenarios, so many scenarios, but we need to take note the formulas. So for the exam, the formulas highlighted by Sir William, I think it's slide 33. Can you go, Sir William, the formulas that we're asked? Yes, this one. These are the formulas. Although it's very simple, some of these are tricky. Because if you're going to understand this, you can easily create your own chart, which eventually you can create your own, eventually you can create the critical path, which is the longest duration. So sometimes there's even a question that is very tricky. Knowing that the longest duration is the critical path, there's one question that what if there's zero duration? So that's one question there. So meaning we need to understand this and not only familiarize. I think this, once we have get the hang of these formulas, we can create our own in the actual as well. So we have built up the scope, we have built up the work breakdown structures, and from those work breakdown structures, we were able to create the work packages. Then from that, we can really break it down further into activities, which we can assign it in the scheduling. So I think that's another thing. Okay, so this is one of the impact of those formulas. This is one thing highlighted by Sir William. Okay, so very nice presentation, right? we can go for break after this. I think 15 minutes break. Everybody deserves a coffee.
Okay, I have a question, Sir William.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned kanina yung progress data. Saan yon nakukuha?
Ito?
Yes, you said we need a progress data for to control the schedule.
Yes. So the data the raw data is you can get from the executing processes. You know, when you execute your plan already, you can get some data on that. For example, you do the concreting, so you can have for this day how many cubic meters of concrete you pour. So how many area you finish. So this is what you call the work performance data. You will get from the executing.
The actual, sir. It's the actual.
Yes. The actual data.
Mm.
So this example is for construction, but I don't know about your side. Yeah, because I'm not familiar with computer engineering. Sorry.
No worries, sir. Okay, for for citing this example, okay. For the executing process, dito tayo bumabalik sa IT part. If you remember in our application or server side or network side, usually the executing process, it's where all the information such as yung implementation part. The implementation part, they have this information like yung change request. Change request, we have to submit a change request. Any changes that we do on the application side, any changes we do on the server side, network side, or the cloud side, we have to submit this data. Those data na information na kailangan natin, we will get those key stakeholders information. Any issues that relates to any performance issues, usually we put it in writing also. Tama po ba, sir? Like for example, pag nag-concrete ka, example ng concreting, it's
may report yan.
May report. Yung mga reports na yon, kinukuha natin, isasubmit natin. In the IT side, the same thing. We get all those information at the same time, write down those experiences, those issues that we experience, write down everything in process, then we submit to our vendors. Vendors will do, they will try to come up with a solution, then we will be able to resolve these issues phase by phase. Ito yung executing process. Sa akin, I'm trying to get the in-depth of this because I'm also part of doing projects in my workplace. Pero our part in the IT, syempre sir, kausapin ka na namin. Kaya mo naman agile, di ba sir?
Yeah, normally yung IT agile yung ginagamit eh. Hindi ko pa yan kabisado.
Okay. Mostly for IT side is we use because this one based on what I learned while I'm doing my ITIL, it's they use in IT side is they use in ginagamit nila part of PMP. At the same time they use part of Prince and part of what's that? Agile. They combine actually. Kaya medyo malaki ang scope pagka pinagsama-sama mo yung different types of what's this sa PMP. Kasi may mga other type of like for example yung Agile and then Scrum, isa din yan. Marami kasi hindi lang isa ang ginagamit for IT side. Depende kasi kung paano mo siya gagamitin in your workplace.
Ganito yun sa inyo eh. Di ba?
Isang part din yan, sir. Alam ko, kasama din po yan. And then kasama din po ang Agile.
Actually, sa PMP, may Agile din pero kaunti lang.
Pero mostly sa IT side kasi ang ginagamit is Agile. Yes.
So ito yung mga review notes ko.
For the exam.
Oh, for the exam. So,
pwede na nating i-next. Agile na. Kaya na natin. Okay. Questions, mga team. Para kung meron pa tayong mga questions, let us know. Then,
I have still a question kay Sir Casino. What is the difference of WBS and WBS dictionary?
What I know is WBS is like the tables or the graph that you can see. Then the dictionary is the explanation on what is inside the WBS, like the work package and this work. What's the term?
Talagang define mo lang, sir.
Define mo lang yung ano.
We have
yung work package at saka
WBS dictionary.
Yung with your scope baseline.
Yung planning package.
Sir, ito ba yung ano to ito ba yung ginagamit natin na Gantt chart or ano yun? Yung graph or yung parang timeline? Is it?
Hindi.
I think some more, right?
Directly lang to, sir. kung ano, kasi more on graphical yung WBS, na napansin nyo meron siyang main activities, sub-activities, and eventually yung smallest siya, mga packages. Ang dictionary, i-attach siya kasi hindi mo naman pwede ma-define yung kung ano man yung description ng activities doon. Simply definition lang talaga siya. Dictionary lang talaga siya. Yeah. For example, activity 1.1, nakalagay lang natin doon is preparation of server, for example. Then, ano yung mga sub-activities for preparation of server. So, naka-define lang doon yung description niya. Anong klaseng server, ito pa yung, basta naka-breakdown lang siya na wordings. Dictionary lang talaga siya.
Words lang.
Yes. So, usually, attach natin from graphical is one shot, ma-visualize mo. Then, you have the dictionary para mabasa mo kung ano yung mga additional descriptions. As simple as that lang.
Okay po, salamat.
Question po.
Sige.
Sir, regarding pag halimbawa may mga force majeure ka, halimbawa yung concrete may schedule for today. So may force majeure tapos hindi, so paano yun? Ma-adjust lahat yung buong schedule from that area?
Actually, during the planning, alam mo na yung yung kailan ka mag-concreting.
Kaso po for example, may mga unforeseen events ka.
Yun, maapektuhan. Maapektuhan yun.
So yung scheduling mo, mag-a-adjust lahat yun?
Adjust lahat. Depende din sa activity. Pag itong activity na belong sa sa critical path, maapektuhan yung lahat, yung timeline.
Okay.
Pero hindi siya sa critical path, wala problema. Dahil mayroong float naman siya.
Pero it's that okay na i-adjust lahat yung schedule?
Pag ganon, dapat mag-change request ka dahil maapektuhan yung baseline, yung schedule baseline. So depende na yung sa client kung papayag siya na ma-delay yung project. Pwede naman ma-delay yung project pero magbayad ka ng liquidated
depende
damages.
Sa contract. Okay.
Depende sa contract. Yeah.
I want to add sa that one, Sir Argel. Not all activities are related to one activities. May time na, yun nga, if we have the work breakdown structure, mapapansin nyo, hindi naman ang activity A totally siya yung starting point or predecessor ng other activities. So most likely, portion lang talaga nung schedule, entire schedule ang affected nung isang delay, example lang. But normally, sabi na nga ni highlighted by Sir William, we have the float. Yun yung as project managers or as planners, yun yung ginagamit natin para hindi tayo ma-delay.
Buffer.
Meaning,
Buffer.
may time pa tayo na, sige, kahit na may aksidente or may bagyo or may ilang days or weeks na delay. As long as buhay yung float, yun yung pwede mo pa ma-readjust, which is acceptable yun sa client normal.
Sir, example ang kasi the good thing example niya yung concrete kasi may curing ka Paano ko yung during that curing time mayroon kang mga ulan or yung rain na di ba kinocure mo yan? So paano yun? So ikaw mismo in-estimate mo na yung time mo na halimbawa po yung 21 days plus the scenario na makikita? Ganun ba yun? Sorry.
Normally, paggawa ka ng schedule, alam mo na yung requirement ng concreting. So, additional na yun sa schedule mo. So, alam na yan, for example, alam na yan ng client na ganito ang kailangan na period para makaproceed ka sa next activity. Pero kung gusto ka ma-reduce tong 21 days, mayroon kaming anong sabi sa inyo? May additive kami sa concrete. So, instead of we wait for 21 days, we make it 18 days. So, may chemical kami na i-add sa concrete.
Add mix.
Pwede na rin yan para buffer sa schedule mo. Pero it's additional cost because may ni-add ka na chemical sa concrete.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So, in addition
pa-translate sa IT. I'll explain.
Ako pa yung nagkuhan. Okay, sige. Sample. Okay, for this one, example ng let's say provision of server. Okay. On this part, yung predecessor tignan nyo lang yung ano to yung concrete slab. Yan yung setup of server. Usually, what's the timeline of setting up a server? First thing is, unang-una, you need to get the requirements. Requirements is what's the current specs. Once you get the current specs, then you have to give it to your procurement for purchasing the hardware. Siyempre, we have to give always a lead time. Lead time na kailan darating yung mga devices namin, yung equipment. Usually, they have a turnaround days of 30 days. If not, then we have to wait, we have to extend, but we need to follow up with our vendor that who accepted dun sa requirement natin. Then, for our IT side, syempre, we have to consider setting up the server is not that easy. Syempre, ilalagay mo yan, sasaksak mo lahat, ipa-power on mo. Syempre, during the setup stage, there would be some instances na unexpected instances like pag-boot mo, dead set. Di syempre, you have to call support. Once you call support, then syempre, pupuntahan ng what's this? Ng technical support to troubleshoot the hardware. Then syempre, our lead time for deploying the server na binigyan mo ng 21, example, we give it 21 days just setting up yung server. Except for setting up, we have to put there information such as kung anong setup mo sa server, which is it a DC, FS, remote desktop, depends on what setup. Usually we have lead time or lag time. Depende kung ano yung schedule na binigay mo. Kung na-implement mo within less on that days, then good. Depende kasi yan. We have to do also change requests if there would be some cases that we will have those instances na hindi mo din expected na. Okay? May mga tanong, okay ba sa inyo yung sagot ko po? Sir? Any more questions, guys, before we go for a break?
Salamat.
Okay po ba, Sir William? Is the same concept, sir. Yung side kasi ninyo is the reason why I know a bit of this because I had experience with civil because I understudied nung buhay pa yung dad ko kasi he's doing construction. I know a bit learning curve on construction side. Kaya may timeline yan, hindi naman gastang. Pag nagbuhos ka ng semento, syempre ilang araw yan bago mag-steady. Hindi yan pwedeng bara-bara, o sige, tira. Hindi yan ganyan. May science yan. Even calculating the number of hollow blocks, the number of number of sand, gravel, depende kung ano yung type na gagawin mo, kung bubuo ka ng bahay dyan. Kaya I'm really thankful sa inyo kasi it's really informative for this. Medyo na ngayon na-understand ko na. And then syempre ma-apply din natin in our workplace and even you guys, you'll be able to understand this. Okay, any more questions before we go on break? Before we do our final one? Let us know. If may tanong pa kayo sa mga ating mga trainers.
Well, let's have a break.
Okay, let's have our break for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, it's 3:42. We'll have our 15 minutes break. Then we start the exam.
May another topic. We still have one more.
May topic
Yes,
pa.
we still have one more.
Okay. Thank
Kaya
you, sir.
pahinga muna, Sir William.
Na-stress
Okay.
ata si sir, ha?
Na-ambush. Sige, sir. Break muna tayo.
Okay, break muna tayo. 15 minutes, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're back. Sir William, take it away na po.
Okay. So for the next topic, hello, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So for the next topic will be about project cost management. So for the takeaways, there's only 8. So for number 1, the definition of the processes, input tools and techniques, outputs, and the key concepts, types of cost and estimates, difference between cost baseline and project budget, difference between contingency and management reserve, and then the funding requirements and the control cost. So this graph I already explained on the previous slide. So it's just the same with the project cost management only has processes for planning process group and also a monitoring and controlling process group. So under the planning process, the plan cost estimate, the estimate cost and the determine budget, and the monitoring and controlling is a control costs. So you can go to these pages below here to have an elaboration on this topic. So definition, the project cost management is the process involved in planning, estimating, budgeting, financing, funding, managing and controlling costs so the project can be completed within the approved budget.
Sir, na-mute ka, sir.
Hello? Okay na? So Alex, okay na? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So
Okay na.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay na.
So for the plan cost management, the process of defining how the project costs will be estimated, budgeted, managed, monitored, and controlled. The estimate costs, the process of developing an approximation of the monetary resources needed to complete the project work. Then the determined budget, the process of aggregating the estimated cost of the individual activities or work packages to establish an authorized cost baseline. Then control cost, the process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project costs and manage changes to the cost baseline. So ITTOs, please get familiar with the corresponding inputs, tools and techniques and outputs for each of the processes under the project cost management. So no need to memorize. The important thing is to know the reasons behind the usage of the tools and techniques. So as I said before, there's 59 tools and techniques. Then under the project cost management, there are only 19 that they use. And then the tools and techniques that appear more than once is the expert judgment, data analysis, leads and lags, project management information system. So I already explained this in the previous topic. So if you are planning to take the exam, it can help to read this table every day and get familiar with the items under the project management plan and the project documents. So each of the items has its own definition. So you have to read that also. Key concepts. The project cost management key concept is that it concerns primarily with the cost of the resources needed to complete the project activities. But it should also consider the effect of project decisions on the subsequent recurring cost of using, maintaining, and supporting project deliverables. So different stakeholders will measure project cost in different times. So stakeholder requirements for managing costs should be considered explicitly. Predicting and analyzing the prospective financial performance of the project's product may be performed outside the project, or it may be part of the project cost management. The type of cost and estimate. So to have an accurate estimate, you have to know these types of cost and add to the figure to your estimate calculation. So actually there are 6 types of costs: direct cost, indirect cost, fixed cost, variable cost, sunk cost, and opportunity cost. So for the direct cost is as explained here, is expenses that a company can easily connect to a specific cost object, which may be a product, department, or project. This can include software, equipment, and raw materials. So for the indirect cost, so extend beyond the expenses you incur creating a product to include the cost involved without maintaining and running a company. So indirect costs include supplies, utilities, office equipment, rental, desktop computers, and cell phones. Then for the fixed cost is a cost that does not change with the increase or decrease in the amount of goods or services produced or sold. Then the variable cost is a project expense that changes in proportion to the project output. Then sunk cost refers to the money that was already been spent, which cannot be recovered. And then the opportunity cost represents the potential benefits an individual investor or company misses out on when choosing one alternative over another. Example for this opportunity cost is, for example, there's a project tender A and tender B. Tender A is amounting to 100 million, and tender B is amounting to 50 million. But when the award of contract, you get the tender B, which is 50 million. So the opportunity cost that you miss is the tender A, which is the 100 million. That's the meaning of the opportunity cost. So this one also will please familiarize. So type of estimate. Cost estimates include labor, equipment, materials, and risk as well as management reserves. So analogous and 3-point estimate is considered a lower accuracy, and higher accuracy is the 3-point, parametric, and bottom-up. The 3-point can be lower and higher accuracy because this will depend on the source of the data. As you remember, the 3-point uses the equation. So now we go to the difference between cost baseline and the project budget. So management reserve will cater to the unknown risk. Then a contingency reserve will cater to the known risks. So normally the project budget is fixed unless there's a major issue on the project cost and miss some zero during the tender stage. Do you know how much will be difference if missing a zero in a unit rate? It will be very big amount just for 1 zero. So cost baseline can be changed, but it will need to be approved. It will go to perform integrated change control process. So once approved, the additional cost will be taken from the management reserve. But hopefully the management reserve is still there because the management reserve is not controlled by the project manager. The project manager only controls the contingency reserve. So based on this graph, the project budget is the sum of the management reserve and the cost baseline. And then the cost baseline is a summation of contingency reserve and the work package cost and estimates. And then for the work package and cost estimates is a summation of the activity contingency reserve and the activity cost estimates. So this is just a guide on how you estimate the cost of your project. So the difference between contingency and management reserve.
Hello, sir. Pwede ba magtanong during the discussion? Hindi.
Pwede. No problema.
With regards to sa kaninang costing do sa mga reserve, is there a percentage for that?
Actually, depende sa company nyo.
Kasi parang dito is like 30 out of hindi, mga 10-20% pa to.
Actually, depende yan sa company nyo dahil may guide din kayo sa paano kayo mag-tender kung ano na project. So depende na sa inyo yan.
Per project, no? Okay. Sige po. Thank you.
Okay. But the contingency reserve is, you will get this amount through the project risk management. This is another knowledge area for the project management. I think it's in the number 10 or number 8. Because this one is a known risk, the contingency reserve, based on the work packages. Because every work packages there's a risk. So this risk must be put in the contingency reserve.
So pwede mag-cite na example dyan.
Example. Okay.
Sir, sample, bigyan kita ng sample. Yung pag nag-construct ng maliit na bahay para may idea sila.
Okay. For example, mag-construct ka ng bahay mo. Tapos, yung sa footing, when you do the excavation to install the footing, yung base ng column ng bahay, pag-excavate mo doon, pag may bato na malaki, tapos hindi mo ma-achieve yung depth na required sa design. So, ano na yan, may additional cost na yan para pag-break ng malaking bato. Ganon. So i-add mo na yung cost na yan sa contingency reserve. Pero depende din yun sa magkano percentage na ilagay mo sa estimated na footing depth requirement. Naintindihan ba?
Okay, explain ko ha kung bakit yan ito. Yung sinasabi ni Sir na footing is yung lalim nung paglalagyan mo nung bakal na column. Kasi kung napapansin nyo, lahat sa construction, usually they have meron silang unang base. Yung pinakaunang base, yun yung column nung mga building. Nilalagay dyan para mag-stable yung building mo.
Ito.
Yan ang sinasabi. Yan yung footing. Yan yung
So
nilalagay.
dapat maghukay ka.
Yes, maghuhukay ka. Depende kung anong size nung lalim nung footing mo. Pag once na nailagay mo na yung footing and everything, maglalagay ka ng bakal. Siyempre, itataas, i-erect mo yan. Lalagyan mo ng mga, yung mga bakal na yan, meron yung katumbas na sukat kasi ang construction is not also, exact science din yan. Kaya napapansin nyo yung mga buildings natin, hindi siya nag-shake ng basta-basta. Kasi talagang may may mga sukat yan.
Earthquake design.
Sa earthquake design. Kaya kung napapansin nyo, yung mga ganyan mga bahay, usually it takes time. Pag nagkataon, sabi ni sir, pag may bato dyan, syempre, yung construction mo tatagal. Syempre, madadagdagan ng araw yung tao mo na tanggalin yung bato. Okay? Kaya,
paano pag naubos yung contingency reserve mo?
Ayan, sir.
Pag
Aakit
naubos,
ka na ngayon sa cost baseline.
Pag naubos na yung contingency reserve mo, dito ka kukuha sa management reserve.
Okay. Allowed ba yun? Legal ba yan? O papasok ba dyan yung approval, ganyan?
Dapat may permit dahil dapat may approval dahil madagdagan na yung cost baseline. Basta, sabi ko kanina, basta may baseline, dapat may change request. Pero kung ginamit mo lang yung contingency reserve, hindi naman maapektuhan ng cost baseline. So, hindi kailangan ng change request.
Question, sir. What if, di ba meron kang, usually pag in construction, right, or any project, usually an initial cost of the project, ilang percent ilang percent usually ang dinadagdag natin sa initial para hindi ka mag-abono?
Sir Lex, alam mo ba yan? Matagal na ko hindi nagano.
Sa simple na 2-story house na project, so may concrete at may steel, normally, naka-generalize. Example, ang cost natin ng isang bahay is 3 million. For the contractor, sa estimate niya, idadagdag niya 10 to 15% for the contingency. Then, pwede siya mag-separate ng so, yung 10 to 15% na yun, pwede niya i-break down into this one. Yung activity cost, yung work package, tsaka yung management reserve niya na sinasabi. Yun yung hina-highlight. Pero overall, normally, yun nga, kapag nangongontrata tayo, meron tayong 10 to 15%. Minsan bigger, especially kung mamahaling architect, tsaka yung ganun professional. So, yun lang yung pinaka-ini-emphasize natin dito. Once we already have the activity, the work packages, and definitely the cost baseline, sineseparate na natin, nakahiwa-hiwala yung contingencies natin. Yes.
Hey, salamat, sir.
Sorry, matagal na ako hindi nakagawa ng bahay. Dahil yung project ko
kasi yung kay sir eh.
Hindi, yung project ko dito underground cables, hindi na sa mga hindi sa civil work na maggawa ng bahay or roads or bridges. Trenching work, underground cable.
Okay.
So more on electrical.
Okay, sir. Thank you po.
Okay. So any more questions? So I proceed. So cost baseline can be changed, but it will need to be approved. Then it will go to I think I already discussed this. So the project manager only can control the contingency reserve. So difference between contingency and management reserve. Contingency reserve is a time or money allocated in the schedule or cost baseline for known risk with active response strategies. And then the management reserve, an amount of the project budget or project schedule held outside of the performance measurement baseline or for management control purposes. That is reserved for unforeseen work that is within the scope of the project. So the management reserve will take care of the unknown risk. The contingency reserve will take care of the known risk. So the known risk, this one will be elaborated in the project risk management. So it will discuss there on how to know the risk and how to calculate also. So we go to funding requirements. So project funding requirements forecast project costs to be paid that are derived from the cost baseline for total or periodic requirements, including the projected expenditures plus anticipated liabilities. So another term for funding requirements is called the cash flow. So every company has a financial year due to tax filing. So here in Singapore, the end of financial year is every end of March. So for the client side, client will always ask for the expenses or how much he will be going to pay for every month or when will be the target date of payment for each completed milestone. So this will depend on the individual contract. But in order to get the cash flow, you have to have the project schedule. So that's why it's connected. So based on the project schedule, you will be able to see the milestone, and each milestone have a corresponding expenses or claims or the project claims, the one that you already completed. And then for your side, you also need the money to spend in order for your project to move. So the salary of your workers, the materials and the like. But based on my experience, I am still not in the level to oversee this work in estimating how much is the company need to spend money every month for the overhead cost. So my only concern is the project schedule is in place and the subcontractor is on track and followed all the requirements for the project. So as you can see here, the funding requirement is like a stairs. So based on this graph, you will know with this time X, you will know how much you will need for these activities here in this box. Then as the time progresses, the funding will also increase. So we go to the control cost. So this graph is I already explained before. So I just give the definitions of this, the work performance data, work performance information, and the work performance report. So the work performance data is the raw observations and measurements identified during the activities performed to carry out the project work. And the work performance information, the performance data collected from the various controlling processes, analyzed in context and integrated based on the relationships across areas. And then the work performance reports is the physical or electronic representation of work performance confirmation compiled in the project documents, which is intended to generate decisions or raise issues, actions, or awareness. So whether you want to do corrective action, preventive action, or just do nothing. So for the monitoring of the cost, you have to know the cost variance or CV. So it provides, cost variance provides cost performance of the project. So it helps determine the amount of budget deficit or surplus at a given point in time. So CV is equal to earned value minus actual cost. If the result is a negative, it means it's over budget. So you spend, how to say, you spend too much. And then if zero, it means on budget, and if it's positive, is under budget. So normally we aim for zero or positive. And then the cost performance index is the measures of cost efficiency on a project, ratio of earned value to actual cost. So if the result analysis is less than 1, is over budget, and if it's equal to 1 is on budget, and is more than 1 is under budget. So this is a summary or a table regarding the cost variance and the schedule variance. So here is a schedule variance, here is a cost variance. So normally, for as project managers, you have to aim for this, the green box. And if you just want to become just nice, this block box. And the worst scenario for the project manager to have a result is this red box. But normally, we always get this red box. So this ends my topic for the project cost management. So I will go to I have 2 sample questions also here. So sample question number 1. Project's total budget is 50,000, and 40% of the project work has been completed. However, according to the plan, the project should have an earned value of 18,000. So the total cost incurred to date is 25,000. Which of the following is true status of the project? A, the project is under budget but behind of schedule. B, the project is over budget but ahead of schedule. C, the project is under budget and ahead of schedule. Or D, the project is over budget and behind of schedule.
Mat na ito, sir, no?
Mat na.
Mat na pala ito, nako.
Basta cost estimate, may mat na.
Plus 18 is 43. Ano ba yung earned value dapat?
Earned value is a measure of completed work expressed in terms of authorized schedule for that work. So,
sir.
18.
ah,
Bakit meron siyang ano?
Wait.
so you have to use this formula.
Sabi ni sir, it's 40% of the 30% of 50,000.
Earned value is 18. Which is yung completed, 40%. Tama ba?
So ano ang sagot po?
D daw, sabi ni Cha.
D?
Huh?
D is correct.
B?
Letter B.
Letter B?
Yeah.
Project is over budget but ahead schedule.
Yes.
Sir, kung naman po po ng explanation why para maging ano to.
Sige. Dito na, may answer key ako eh.
Ikaw talaga, sir.
So ito yung answer. So ginamit yung yung CPI at saka SPI. Dahil ang kailangan niya is on schedule ba or on budget. So yung CPI is para sa sa budget at saka SPI yung sa schedule.
CPI is budget sa kabila ng schedule. Ano yun? Bakit may 20,000 dyan, sir? Kasi 18,000. Parang, inano mo siya? Ay, hindi. So, ano ko yung 20,000? 50%.
Ito. Sa actual earned value.
50 times 40%.
Dahil sabi dito, 40% ng yung complete.
So, which is 20,000.
Yeah, dahil yung total cost ng project is 50,000.
Okay.
So, 40% ng 50 is 20. So, yun yung yun yung plan.
Yeah, it's like over kasi nga dapat
Yun yung itong EV. Earned value.
earned value is the
Earned value is the 20,000.
Okay. So, my pressure is
Divided by the actual cost. So 8.8. Schedule index is earned value over yung kanyang supposed earned value.
over
1.1.
tapos ahead ng schedule. Okay po.
So once nakuha yung CPI and SPI, need natin ma-relate doon, Sir William, sa di ba? Doon sa definition.
Dito.
Yes, this one. Kaya dapat familiar tayo dito.
Familiar
Ito yung definition niya, mga sir. Kapag nasolve na natin yung SPI na greater than 1, ahead tayo. Kasi 1.1 yung SPI natin sa solution.
So dito yan. Dito yan na column.
Pero
Tapos
yung CPI naman natin is 0.8, so less than 1.
Bed pa rin. Bed budget.
0.8 siya. So,
over budget dito.
Greater than
0.8 yung nakuha natin, di ba? So, less than 1 yung CPI. So, ito yung sa ahead of schedule over budget yung answer niya. So, dapat memorize din natin yung na yun. Ito, dapat memorize din.
Importante itong graph na to.
Okay. Pare-pareho ba yung mga tanong, sir, sa exam?
Wala
similar.
Mas mahirap?
Similar.
Puro mahirap lahat?
Similar yung yung tanong.
Parang nosebleed ako, sir, dun sa mga exam ng PMP. Mas matindi pala to.
Kaya nyo yan. Kailan ba kayo mag-take na exam? This year?
Ini-encourage pa lang, sir. Hindi pa sila undecided pa.
Bukas na yung si DP dyan eh.
Dahil next year, iba na yung yung outline ng exam.
Anong version na server next year na pag nagkataon?
7th edition na.
7th.
Siyempre, mababa naman yun.
So, may ibang outline. So, ipakita ko sa iyo ang outline. Ito na yan. So, next year, iniba na yung outline.
Oh.
So, ito na. Tatlong topic, tatlong domain. Dahil dati yung domain ito.
Ibang-iba na talaga.
Oo, mas marami nun dati.
Ito.
Oh.
Sa processes yung dati. So, next year, focus nila ito sa my people na at saka business environment.
Di mas shorter na, sir, pag nagkataon compare before.
Ah, hindi naman shorter dahil parehas lang ang
Kasi
items.
kinumpres lang nila yung ibang topics.
Pero I think advantage sa inyo dahil more on agile ito eh. May 50% yata yung agile or hybrid approach.
Maganda pala, sir, pagka nagkataon. Yung... Pero same content pa rin po ba, sir? If ever na ano to?
Hindi ko pa alam yung hindi pa ipalabas yung 7th edition.
Okay.
Pero most probably similar lang. May additional lang. Ganun naman. So we go to the second question.
Okay.
Project is 50% complete. So the total project budget is 5,000 and the total actual cost is 3,000. So what is the project's total earned value?
Formula. Letter A ba yan, sir?
Tama.
50% times 5,000?
Yes, tama. Pasado ka na, sir. So, ang sagot ito is A. Kaya lang, hinahanap niya isang earned value. So, may percentage na kayo dito na itong 50% complete, ito na yung earned value ng project. So, i-multiply mo lang yung sa 5,000 na total project budget. Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Let's see. Nasaan yun sa chat? Wala po tayong mga questions, guys? No questions means everyone is...
Okay.
Oh, may question.
Tama, panggulo nga lang yun.
Kasi yan yung based sa pagkakaintindi ko sa exam, it's any type of exam, even if it's AWS, even Cisco, even Microsoft or whatever for IT side. It's usually meron mga ganyang questions na bibigyan ka talaga ng tricky questions, but the answer is still there. Kaya minsan, we have to check yung mga questions na tinatanong sa atin. Kasi from there, malalaman natin yung actual na sagot. Just like now, based dun sa nakita ko kanina, it's tricky siya. In the sense na, based dun sa question, if 50% yung accomplishment mo na, then ang budget mo 5,000. Then may total actual cost ka na 3,000. Siyempre, there are some trick questions that we have to make sure na maintindihan natin before we answer talaga. Kasi mabilis. Ilang minutes per answer pagka PMP?
There will be 200 questions for 4 hours.
200 questions for 4 hours. Biruin mo mga
Mga 1 minute plus lang.
1 minute plus ang papasagot sa iyo. Parang mabilis ka dapat.
So yung like this, sorry.
So yung technique ko, pag may mga equation, ini-skip ko. Babalikan ko. Ilagyan ko lang ano
Ay,
ng
ano yung mga
marker.
Oh.
Dahil it takes time yung ano calculation.
online lang ba yung exam?
Yung sa akin online.
Proctor lang, proctor.
Proctored online exam.
Pero may timer talaga siya na you will stop at
Meron.
I mean 4 hours. Okay.
May break sa ano sa pag ano naka mga 98 questions. May break.
Yung 4 na oras tuloy-tuloy, di ba?
Hindi pwede. May break na ano 10 minutes yata yun, 10 minutes.
May nagsusupervise? I mean, mayroon nagko-control?
Meron.
Okay, I just want to add for this question. Normally, questionnaires are recycled. I mean, one given, pero they ask a lot of questions. So sometimes yun nga, if we cannot identify what is really the question, yun, tatagal tayo. Like if we consider the 3,000. Kasi most likely, on other scenario, same given, the 50%, 5,000 and 3,000 could be used on a different question. So pwede niyang itanong kung ano naman yung related sa cost index natin or pwede naman sa SPI. So ganun ang nangyayari. Meaning, isa yung given pero most probably dalawa, tatlo yung nakastore na mga questions doon. Kaya ganyan din ginagawa na. The longer the question, most likely mas simple pala yung answer.
Kaya.
So yun ang isa. Okay, any other questions for Sir William? Because before we wrap up, if ever, I want to have some additional explanation for this topic. Just a few notes. So if you still have questions, let's proceed muna. For Sir William.
Sana wala na.
Because after this, yun nga, after I will add some info, then we'll pause for 5 minutes, then yung 10 questions na we'll try to answer, manghuhula lang tayo. Yun na yung susunod.
Wala problema, may answer key naman eh.
Ano po bang ano siya, tawag dito? Group effort yung pagsagot?
Individual. Later, sa discussion na lang, sa discussion. Okay, sige. I think it's almost time na kasi. We still have what time?
4:45.
4:45. So, it's okay, sir. You don't have to. I just add some comments. Okay. So in addition, so we discussed the cost project management. If you can recall the first few days, first few sessions natin, especially I think the day 1, cost management, we have only four processes, which is 3 of those is included sa planning. So yun nga, it is the project cost management, the plan cost management, then you have the estimates, and you have the determination of your budget or determined budget. Then yun yung tatlo sa planning. Those are the 3 cost related na processes which are under the planning domain. Then ang next niya, the 4th one is nasa monitoring control. Yun na yung diniscuss dito ni Sir William, yung control the cost. Similarly, dun sa schedule, kapag monitoring ang control na tayo, expect natin kung schedule naman siya is we control schedule because we are the project managers. So yun lang siya ang gusto kong i-highlight. First, you identify your plan cost management. You create your first estimation only of the cost. Then eventually, we could have our own budget. Then after we had our budget, we control. So yun lang siya yung related sa costing natin. Okay? So 4 items or 4 processes. So any questions? Time out tayo ng kahit 2 minutes para ma-prepare ni Sir William yung questions. So again, it doesn't matter kung ilan yung score natin. We just want to have your 1 to 10, then your ABC, your scoring, kung tama or mali, it doesn't matter. Try lang natin. Then yun yung screenshot, then yun yung isubmit.
Lang namin sa notebook namin, sir, gano'n.
Okay lang, sir. I-screenshot nyo lang. Para, ano lang, proof of participation. Kasi, okay lang, kung proud kayo na na-perfect nyo, edi mas maganda. Baka may bonus points. Pero yun lang talaga. Para lahat tayo mag-try dun sa questions. Okay? Sir William? We can still have the 2 minutes break then. Ilang minutes per question ba tayo, Sir William?
1 minute.
Depende sa inyo.
1 minute per question? Kasi i-discuss pa natin afterwards, di ba?
Sige.
Puro wala naman sanang calculation yan. Meron ba? Basta meron no?
Basta cost.
Sir William, ilang questions po yan?
Saan po?
Ilang questions? Ito pong ano.
Ito?
Oo.
Dami to, mga 30.
Pero 10 lang yung gagamitin natin ngayon.
10 lang, 10. First 10 lang, first 10.
Okay, first 10.
30 medyo.
No split.
No split. Sir.
Anyway,
So dito,
manghuhula lang naman tayo, no?
So dito ako nag-aral sa Prepcast. Online din.
Mamahalin yan.
Hindi, mas mura pa to sa NTUC.
Kaya nga eh.
Kaya nga dito ako eh. Dahil mahal yung NTUC.
Mahal na 2,000.
Magkano po kayo?
Diyan, sir, sa PM Precast.
Dito mga lang. 400 yata yan. 400 US.
So, around 600 SGD.
Mahal
Equivalent sa
din.
exam rate din.
Okay,
Okay.
For life na po pa yung certification?
Hindi.
3 years.
For 3 years. Tapos mag-maintain ka ng CPD. PDO.
Kaya ito, may PDO na si Sir William. Kasi nag-conduct na siya ng training. Okay, pwede na siguro tayo magsimula. Okay na ba lahat? Ay, wala pa si Sir Richard. So 10, siguro mga 1.5 minutes, maghuhula lang naman tayo. Ang importante is yung discussion ng answer. 30 pala to, sir. Okay, sasagutin ako.
Start na?
Hinintay ka, sir. Hinintay ka.
Sorry.
Sige, Sir William. Kung if you're ready,
So,
give us a cue.
Kailangan ko ba basahin o mag-time lang?
Basahin mo.
Basahin mo na, sir, para buhay ka na.
Sige. So, actually, itong question is about introduction ng Timbuk Guide, environment, saka rule of PM, at saka project integration management.
Yeah, na-discuss natin.
So, number 1, a project manager is working in an organization where project managers have significant authority, and work is defined by a functional manager in the organization. All project managers report to a central manager. What type of organization structure is this? A, functional. B, weak matrix. C, balance matrix. D, strong matrix.
Sabihin nyo na ba agad yung sagot, sir, o mamaya na?
Mamaya na.
Okay.
Dahil yung answer key nasa sa baba.
So 1 minute lang, sir. 1 minute. No? Walang
Hindi ko rin alam ang answer eh.
Kasi parang maiba. Wala to sa mga terms na pinag-aralan natin.
Nakalimutan ko na yung exam eh. Tapos na.
Okay na? Okay. Number 2 na pala.
Number 2. Every 1 minute So number 2, according to Timbuk Guide, a project manager office may manage A, organizations projects, B, organizations projects and facilities the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques, or C, standardization of project-related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques, or D, on organizations, projects, programs, portfolios, and operations.
Ano, nosebleed ako dito, sir.
Tissue.
Actually, hindi ako pumasa nito sa sample test na to.
Sabi nga daw, mas mahirap pa tong prepcast kaysa sa
Mas
actual.
mahirap ang prepcast. Okay, we go to the next one. Number 3, according to the PMBOK guide, who is generally responsible for approving or rejecting complex change requests carried out in major projects or large organizations? A, project customer, B, project sponsor, C, project manager, or D, change control board.
Parang wala yung iba. So, pwede ba
Na-discuss to, Sir Richard. Na-discuss to.
Parang wala ako niyan,
Wala. Absent ka siguro nun, sir.
Ito, high chance ito lalabas sa exam. Basta mga change requests.
Na-discuss ba yung change control board? Hindi ko na matandaan. Bala na.
Sa day 2 natin na-discussion, sir. Day 2.
Letter D. Ako.
D2. D2.
Wag kang maingay.
Ay, hindi pa pwede sabihin. Nasabi ko, sorry.
Sige, number 4 na tayo, sir.
Okay. Number 4, a scheduling software tool is considered which of the following? A, an organizational process asset, an enterprise environmental factor, C, a configuration management system, or D, a project constraint. Okay. Number 5, an airport employee is a process improvement manager responsible for the overall improvement of the airport's operations. This employee is currently supervising a number of process improvement projects at the airport relating to passenger experience, immigration, baggage handling, and cargo processes. For every improvement project, there is a project manager reporting directly to this person. Which of the following best describes this role? A, project coordinator, B, project manager, C, project program manager, D, portfolio manager. Hindi ko rin alam ang sagot nito .
Mamaya na natin sa answer key tingnan.
Hindi ba yun ang sagot? Parang tempting yun yung sagot . Sir Richard.
Perte ka din, Sir Richard. Talaga.
Kaya nga, nakikita ko . Determined si Sir.
Okay, number 6.
Okay, number 6.
So which of the following is not a part of project's administrative closure? A, verification of the exit criteria. B, auditing project success or failure. C, alternative dispute resolution. Or D, updating organizational process assets. So which one is not part? So the 3 choices are the correct answer. So you have to choose which one is not the correct one.
So closure na to.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 7. So which of the following statement is true regarding the direct and managed project work process? Letter A, it is a discrete process that is only performed as part of monitoring and controlling the project. Letter B, it is a continuous process that is only performed in parallel with project executing and closing processes. Letter C, it is a continuous process that is performed throughout the project. And letter D, it is a continuous process that is only performed parallel to the project executing processes. So three of the statement is wrong. You have to choose which one is correct.
Direct and managed process.
Okay, next one. Number 8. Generally speaking, during the which phase of a project is the funding requirements for the project at its peak? A, initiating, B, planning, C, executing, D, closing. So it means which is for these four choices, which is the busiest time? The busiest time in the project.
Funding requirements.
Busiest time means more expenses. Okay, next one. Number 9. Which of the following is less likely to be a PMO function within an organization? A, hiring the project teams. B, coaching and mentoring the project teams. C, developing project management methodology. Sorry. D, monitoring compliance with project management standards. PMO means project management office. Usually PMO is only for big companies. For small companies, there's no need for PMO. Okay. Go to number 10. Last question for this topic. A construction company is engaged in multiple small to medium-sized construction projects all across the state. Every project is being managed by a project manager, and every project manager has a dedicated project team reporting to him. The CEO of the company realizes that there is the potential to minimize costs by making sure that the projects are being managed more efficiently. The CEO recently created a PMO and made it responsible for project tracking, status reviewing, and progress regulation in order to meet performance objectives. In this scenario, which management is the PMO department responsible for? A, direct and manage project work. B, monitor and control project work. C, develop project management plan. Or C, close project or phase. This is a long question. I give another 30 seconds.
Answer question. Nag-answer na si Kelvin.
Nag-send na
Mabilis.
sa Kelvin.
Ang bilis mo, sir, ah.
Sa answer key na tayo, answer key.
Okay, answer key. This is my favorite part.
Tingnan natin kung nakailang score tayo. Yung may explanation
Okay.
tayo, sir. Yun.
So for number 1, the answer is letter D.
Yun lang.
Strong matrix. It says here that in a strong matrix, project managers have moderate to high authority, and work groups are arranged by job function. Of the choices, this is the best answer. Yeah.
Strong matrix.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you get the answer?
Chamba.
Number 2. So the answer for number 2 is letter C. Standardization of project-related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. This is the job for the PMO based on the PMBOK guide. So normally, the exam is based on the PMBOK guide. So you just study the PMBOK guide. It is enough for you to pass the exam.
Okay.
So the explanation for this answer is PMO doesn't oversee corporate operations, so it can manage projects, programs, and portfolios. However, according to the PMBOK guide, a project management office is a management structure that standardize the project-related governance processes and facilitates the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques. Okay, number 3. The answer is letter D. Yeah. I think someone get the correct answer for this.
Yan yung tricky. PM or the CCB.
Change control board. So this board is the one who will approve the change request. So normally in a big project they will have the CCB, but the smaller project, project manager is the CCB. Okay. So number 4, the answer is letter B.
Ayun.
EEF. Okay. So you have to study because enterprise environmental factor is also solely described in the PMBOK guide. So there's a solid topic for EEF and the OPAs. So you have to read that one also. Yeah. Because majority of the inputs have the EEFs and OPAs for the inputs, tools, and techniques, and the outputs. Yeah.
And also for this one, it is a software tool which is optional for every company.
Yes.
So that is one definition of EEF. So whatever environment which is considered as workflow ng company, so it is considered as environmental factor. It varies.
So number 5 is letter C, program manager. So all of the projects which are being supervised by this person are related because they all fall under airport operations improvement. So this person's role is that of a program manager managing the process improvement program at the airport.
And one keyword for this one, Sir William, is this statement. The project manager, there is a project manager reporting directly to this person. So as we have identified, if there are one or more PM reporting to you, you're considered as higher than the PM. So most likely, ang higher than the PM is the program manager. Higher than the program manager is the
portfolio manager. Yeah.
So yun yung keywords. Yung keyword.
Yeah, thank you for that. So number 6, the answer is letter C, alternative dispute resolution.
Parang wala na kami tumama, sir.
So this is used when two parties of contract cannot settle a claim amongst themselves. So if they cannot, how to say, reconcile, so they will go to alternative dispute resolution.
Sir, example of alternative dispute resolution, anong organization to?
Actually, kung ano, yung pupunta
Court,
na ng
court na ba to? Court? For example,
Yo,
the Singapore court na yung ruling ng mga ibang mga projects, for example, yung mga dredging ng ano. For example, Philippine government to other government to government, ganun?
ano to, ano ba yun?
Like, okay, parang, okay, pagkaintindi ko dyan ha, based sa experience ha, it's, yung dispute is, yung agreement. Diba, usually in a project, right, meron tayong agreement, agreement, may contract. Pag hindi tayo nag-agree, syempre magkakaroon siya ng dispute. Doon nagkakaroon ng demandahan in the court.
Yes.
Because meron kayong nilagdaan, may kasulatan kayo na dapat sundin ninyo. Ito yung pumapasok dyan yung alternative dispute is if both parties are not in good terms, usually they have parang meron silang magwe-weigh in both parties na kailangan ito, ito gusto kong mangyari. Paano kung hindi mo masunod to? Siyempre magka-counter offer yung isang grupo para magkaroon sila ng resolution na hindi na dumating dun sa point na hindi sila hindi matapos yung project. Tama po ba, sir?
I want to add on this one. For the question of Sir Argel, I think it's not necessarily government agad, sir. Meron tayong appointed na tao to be the mediator.
Parang third party
Maging mediator siya. Example for me, if I'm more than qualified, I just go to BCA to have my self-accredited mediator for such cases. So yun, pwede na nila akong kunin. So even though I'm not a lawyer, I'm a practicing engineer, I can be accredited mediator. So yun yung isa sa example. Dito talaga sa Singapore, sir, may ganun. Then for steel structures, sa case ko rin, meron silang accreditation din for the qualified persons na pwedeng mag-handle ng cases. Pero most likely under na to ng yung QS, yun na nga sa mga contracts and disputes. Yung kinukuhan lang, not necessarily abogado, kung sino talaga yung related sa project na yun, na ma-experience then accredited, pwedeng siyang kunin as the mediator. Yun yung isang ADR dito sa Singapore.
So sir, ano lang So means every contract mayroon mga ganyan. For example, mga big contracts.
Sa amin meron, sir. Kasi mini-mention siya nung especially yung yung nagko-closing na. Kaya yung QS, may part sa kanila is may team talaga ng QS na related sa contracts. Naka-stipulate din doon na if certain dispute is not met, we're going to ganto. Meron yun sa amin, sir.
Thank you, Sir Lex.
Okay, Sir William.
Sir Lex, na tayo. Overtime na tayo, sir.
Kaya nga, sir. Sige, bilisan natin.
Wala na explanation. So number 7 is C.
Number 7 is C. Ano ba yung question dyan? Direct money. Okay.
Continuous.
Oh, yes. It's continuous.
Continuous yan eh.
Continuous.
Executing process din kasi siya, no?
Tricky lang siya.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, may tama. Okay, sir. Proceed tayo.
So number 8 is still letter C, executing.
Yes, tama pa rin.
Yan. Ito obvious.
Ito yung BCS part na project.
Yung executing part ng BCS from the to.
Okay, then number 9.
Number 9 is A, hiring the project teams.
Correct.
Nice.
Kasi HR to naka-under. Although, yun nga, may formation ng team. Then, number 10.
Last.
Number 10 is letter B.
Ang haba-haba ng tanong, oh.
Yun, no?
Tama ba?
Nakatama din.
Sige. Okay. Thank you so much, Sir William.